In this video, we're going to look at solving absolute value equations. And I have 6 examples we're going to run through here. And hopefully through that, you'll be an expert at solving absolute value equations. So looking at the first two, I kept them pretty simple. It just says the absolute value of x equals 3. What are the possible solutions for this? Well, if you're not sure what absolute value means, basically, well, the dumbed down version of it is always make it positive. That's kind of what a lot of teachers will say. But what it really means is it's how far away from 0. If you talk about how far are you from your school or from work, you never use negative values. You always say a distance, and so it's the distance from 0. So anyway, which x values could we put in here so that the answer is 3? Well, if we do the absolute value of 3, that's 3. We also could get the absolute value of -3, because -3 is also 3 away from 0. So the answers here are x equals 3 or x equals -3. So 2 possible solutions. Now, with the second example, this one's actually no solution. No solution. And the reason why is because you can never take an absolute value and get a negative answer. So no matter what I put in, that absolute value is always going to make the answer positive. So there's no way you can have the absolute value of some number and get -3. So it's just no solution on that one. And that's true anytime you get any absolute value. So if you end up with like absolute value of 3x plus 17 equals -1, that's also no solution. Whenever you have any absolute value equals a negative number, it's not possible. Now, if I said, let's say I change this to like -4 times the absolute value of that, this would have a solution because your first step would be divide by -4, but we'll get into some examples like that in a little bit. Okay, looking at the next one, so stepping it up just a little bit here, we have to figure out what 2 values could give us the answer of 4 when I plug numbers in for x. So you could probably use some guess and check. I can see right away that 2 plus 2 is 4, so one of the answers is going to be 2. And then you could kind of do some more guess and check and figure out what the other answer is. There's always going to be 2 answers for this. But kind of the procedure that you're going to see is you're going to split this up into 2 possible equations. You're going to do x plus 2 equals 4, just like we have already up there. And then x plus 2 equals -4. The reason why we do this is because if this stuff in here is -4, then the absolute value will turn it into a 4. And so if that stuff inside is indeed -4, then that's going to give us one of the answers. So then we just have 2 equations to solve here. I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. I get x equals 2. That's one of the answers. I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides here, and I get x equals -6. All right, so yeah, that's easy peasy, right? And all you have to do is just plug it back in. -6 plus 2 is -4. Absolute value of that is +4. Plug 2 in, you get 2 plus 2 is 4. Absolute value is indeed 4. All right, on to this one, very similar. What I'd encourage you to do now is maybe pause it, try it on your own, see if you can get the 2 answers for this one based on what we did for the previous example. So I'll do it myself here. I'm going to write out the 2 possible x minus 3 equals 10. And then once again, if this stuff in the middle equals -10, that will also work. So x minus 3 equals -10. All right, let's solve these. I'm going to add 3 on both sides here. I get x equals 13. And then I'm going to add 3 on both sides on the other one, and I get x equals -7. And if you plug those in, they both check out. 13 minus 3 is 10. -7 minus 3 is -10. And the absolute value of that is +10. All right, let's step it up a few notches here. Let's look at this one. Now, what you cannot do is you can't split it up right now because it's not the absolute value equals something. There's some other stuff happening here. So we're going to have to undo some of this stuff first, and then we can break it into 2 separate equations. My first step is going to be get rid of that -6 by adding 6 to both sides. So I get negative 3, x plus 2 equals negative 12. And then I want to get the absolute value all by itself, so I'm going to get rid of that negative 3 out in front by dividing by negative 3. And I get the absolute value of x plus 2 equals positive 4. Now is when you can break it up. So now I can split it into two separate equations. If x plus 2 is 4, we already solved this one, whoopsie. Or if x plus 2 is negative 4. Anytime the inside's negative 4, it'll also absolute value to positive 4. All right, so subtract 2. We already know what the answers are going to be because we just did this one. It's x equals 2. Subtract 2 here. We get x equals negative 6. But basically the moral of the story is we want to make sure we get the absolute value isolated all by itself, and then you can break it into two separate problems. So both of these answers, you plug them in, it will check out. Last one here, try this on your own first. Pause the video, see if you can get it. And then So I'll solve it here myself. I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. We get negative 2x minus 6 equals negative 20. And then that negative is really negative 1 times that, so I'm going to divide by negative 1. And I get 2x minus 6 equals 20, absolute value of that. And then I'm going to split this up into two separate problems. 2x minus 6 equals 20, and 2x minus 6 equals negative 20. All right, add 6 to both sides. We get 2x equals 26. Divide by 2, and we get x equals 13. Same thing over here. Add 6 to both sides. 2x equals negative 14. Divide by 2, and we get x equals negative 7. You plug those in to the original equation, it should check out. If I have negative 7 and I plug that in here for x, 2 times negative 7 is negative 14. Negative 14 minus 6 is negative 20. The absolute value of negative 20 is 20, so if I do 6 minus 20, it's negative 14. Same thing works for if you plug 13 in. All right, so that's it for solving absolute value equations.